Yeah, well, he did agree to sign with the Mets at $315 million for 12 years on December 21st. And I talked to Steve Cohen at that moment in the wee hours of that day, and he was very, very excited. Unfortunately, something was flagged in his physical. It was an issue with his ankle. You know, he hasn't really had any ankle injuries in the majors, but in 2014, he had ankle surgery following an incident on the field. And apparently something shows up in the MRI, happened with the Giants, happened with the Mets. And they tried to work it out, figure out some language that would protect the team, maybe mitigate their risk a bit in case it cropped up again later in the contract. I think the Mets were fairly comfortable those first several years, but it was a long deal, obviously 12-year deal. And, the Mets ultimately offered a 6-year guarantee for half that money, $157.5 million, and then some ways to get some of that money back in the next 6 years. But he got $42.5 million more guaranteed with the Twins, a mid-market team, and he liked that deal better. So, I don't think we should be shocked at this moment that he went to the Twins for a better deal. Well, I'll say I talked to a few Mets people today who were a little bit sad about the situation. Not a great day in Mets land. I think most of the people wanted Carlos Correa on the team. He's a star player. He's got 18 career postseason homers, terrific defender, was willing to go to third base and was happy to have the chance to go to New York. So I think they were enthused about the deal. It was just a matter of the lawyers probably being a little bit risk averse and not wanting to take the chance. It certainly was a lot of money. A lot more money for the Mets than was actually going to Correa because they're the 90% tax bracket. So instead of $25 million a year, would have been $47 million a year. So I think at that point, the lawyers wanted to be very careful with it. I mean, we'll see. It's going to be hard to judge whether they were too careful or not. Scott Boras, the agent, had worked out several deals previously with other teams with would say failures in the physical, or at least something flagged in the physical. And he was able to work it out with language that was to protect the team. In all of those cases, at least J.D. Drew, J.D. Martinez, Magglio Ordonez, and Pudge Rodriguez, the players never got hurt during the term, at least didn't suffer those injuries that were the concern. And the two Detroit players went on to make the World Series, and the two Boston players, Martinez and Drew, ended up winning the World Series with the Red Sox. So in those cases, they did get the deals done with the language that was satisfying to both sides, and it worked out. Here, they could not bridge the gap, and there was a significant enough gap where you can see why Correa went back to the Twins, getting $42.5 million more. Think about the fact he had a deal for $350 million, then he had a deal for $315 million. Is he really going to be anxious to go down to $157.5 million at that point? He did go down to $200 million. I get it from the Mets standpoint. They have the concern about the luxury tax, although they're way over it, and Steve Cohen seems to be okay with it. It makes them want to not have such a high AAV annual salary as the Twins had, $33 million. The Mets wanted to be somewhere in the $25 to $26 million range to keep that tax down. Made it a little bit difficult for them. That could be. I mean, they certainly can look at the MRI just like all the other doctors, and they have the Mayo Clinic there, so they have very good doctors. Maybe they feel a little more confident after looking at the MRI. Maybe it's that they had him and they saw him perform. He did not miss time, as I said, due to the ankle. They loved him very much, and possibly it's because it's hard to attract superstar players to go to Minnesota. Maybe they feel they need to take a little bit more of a risk than, let's say, the Mets, where the Mets can get those star players. They certainly have the money to do it, but New York seems to be an attraction. Everybody seemed to want to be in New York this year with Aaron Judge, Rodon. A lot of players wanted to come to New York, and there were only a few. Benintendi didn't want to go to New York, but it seems like New York is kind of the place to be, and it's probably difficult to get the top player to go to Minnesota, and maybe they were willing to do a little bit more of a risk for that reason.